so far. What exactly are prosecutors looking at here when it comes to AMI?
They are going to try to determine, Emily, to what extent this was actually just reporting that was generated by the National Enquirer's own staff, or if they got any help, if there was any kind of coordination with any political actor. And I think we saw in Jeff Bezos' note, not just possibly the White House, the administration, but perhaps people working on behalf of Saudi Arabia. So that's a much bigger, more explosive component to this.
Now, Max, there are so many dots here that Bezos has thrown out there that aren't connected yet, that may not be connected. But my assessment of this was sort of the nuclear option, given what he has at stake, running a public company. What is your assessment of the personal and professional risk that Bezos has taken?
You know, we've been talking for a better part of a year of kind of the rise of Amazon, the growing power of Jeff Bezos becoming, the world's richest man, watching Amazon, just take over one industry after another and just become this, incredibly unstoppable economic force in the world economy. And I think this is a power move. I mean, this is Jeff Bezos, sort of taking advantage of his platform, his, that the fact that people respect him, the fact that he is associated with this, great newspaper, the Washington Post, and really doing something to the National Enquirer that I don't think they expected, or really anybody expected. It was stunning. And then to see that, kind of on the heels of these, Super Bowl ads, one of which was sort of like this crazy ad just showing how powerful Amazon is. They've got, Mark Kelly turning off the lights for the whole world. And then today with the real estate thing, where you have people in New York City, kind of complaining about Amazon, and Amazon comes out with this kind of saying that they're willing to walk away from this deal. So I think this is just another example of basically the power of Amazon and its founder and CEO.
He's also, of course, the owner of the Washington Post, and he talks about the complexities of that in his blog post, saying, "My ownership of the Washington Post is a complexifier for me. It is unavoidable that certain powerful people who experience Washington Post news coverage will wrongly conclude I am their enemy. President Trump is one of those people, obvious by his many tweets." We've been talking about this word complexifier, which I believe he invented, but I kind of like it. But let's talk about what's at stake. Dropping the president's name here, not knowing for sure what that actually means.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting because at the beginning of the Trump administration, we saw, Bezos going to these, panels with President Trump, kind of, I wouldn't say it was quite like charm mode, but definitely trying to find a way, I think, to work with the administration. And now, I mean, this is pretty much, returning fire. The president has been sort of tweeting at Amazon CEO for a long time, calling the Washington Post the Amazon Washington Post. And now, he's striking back, and I think this is going to be potentially open war.
Now, Greg, there's a whole complicated web of relationships at play here between AMI and the president, and who knows, maybe even the Saudi government. What exactly is next when it comes to whether or not criminal activity was committed here?
Well, first of all, you've got the National Enquirer, as part of the settlement involving Michael Cohen last summer, and the payments to Stormy Daniels that were basically hidden campaign contributions. Because of that legal settlement and the non-prosecution agreement that the National Enquirer's parent company entered into, the magazine has been in the penalty box. They have basically the equivalent of a 3-year stint in the penalty box, where they go and sin no more, don't do anything wrong. So if there's a determination here, and this is the last thing I'm sure they want, is to have federal prosecutors looking at this. If there's any determination that in fact they've gone to the well again, they're doing something that basically amounts to a campaign hit piece, or something that should be construed as an end around campaign contributions or political support, this would be very bad for them. Years ago, I helped our coverage based in London of phone hacking at a tabloid owned by Rupert Murdoch. And it took years and years for the allegations of that to finally explode into the public eye in 2011. And when they did, it was extremely damaging to Rupert Murdoch. It basically thwarted his attempt to buy the rest of Sky. And it had real damage. The fact that Jeff Bezos is behind this helps this jump, over the years and years it took, for the phone hacking scandal to explode. This is now going to be front and center, and it's going to be investigated very thoroughly, and it could be very damaging to AMI, but also have political ramifications, again, for the White House and for anybody who is involved, a supporter of President Trump, who tried to facilitate and make this happen.
And of course, Bezos is trying to figure out just how did the National Enquirer get his text, get these explicit photographs. AMI, for its part, saying American media believes fervently that it acted lawfully at the time of the recent allegations made by Mr. Bezos. It was in good faith negotiations to resolve all matters with him. The board has convened and determined that it should promptly and thoroughly investigate the claims. I mean, certainly, if all of this is true, Max, it cannot be mistaken as journalism, but it's also an interesting evolution of Bezos here, who for the first 2 decades of building his company was a media-shy CEO who avoided the spotlight, and in the last 2 years he's bought the Washington Post, he's taken on Donald Trump, he's sitting next to Roger Goodell at the Super Bowl and running a commercial claiming that democracy dies in darkness. What do you make of the evolution of Jeff Bezos in the last few years?
I think there are probably a couple of ways to look at it, and one of them is maybe this is personal, maybe this is Jeff Bezos, deciding he's got a lot of money, he wants to have a little fun, or something along those lines. I think a more maybe a more cynical way to look at it would be that Amazon suddenly has a lot of power, and we're talking about a time when tech companies are kind of uniquely vulnerable, or vulnerable in a way that they haven't been for a long time, to say both presidential as well as congressional oversight. And I think this is potentially a communication strategy.